Hey guys, we're back for CEO Chat tonight, and tonight's topic is the anxious entrepreneur. I'm going to be joined by Kelz Bethel. She is a 3-time tech entrepreneur, and she's joining us from Trinidad tonight. I have a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the conversation with Kelz, but what I wanted to just touch on briefly is to encourage you, number one, check out the link in my bio. Based on the first of this series of conversations around entrepreneur mental wellness, my guest was Coach Dan Wingert, and together we came up with a great downloadable, and you can find it at the first link in my link tree. So just check out the link in my bio for that download. It's basically about helping you to expand your bandwidth, and it's a great little tool, a little gimmick that she actually uses for her coaching. So I want you to check that out. Next up is please go back and watch the conversations with Kadia. Kadia was my guest last week. Kadia Francis from Digital Jamaica. That conversation was a very frank and honest outlook at entrepreneurship. And on top of that, the week before, my guest was Mira, my soul sister Mira. And that conversation was genuine, and it was very heartfelt around trauma and relationships. And Mira was so vulnerable in that conversation. So if anybody is interested in actively working on their trauma, that's actually a really good conversation to listen to. In addition to that, my upcoming guest on July 14th is Dr. Karen Carpenter. She is my therapist. Y'all probably have heard me sing her praises repeatedly, but I'm going to be having her as my guest on July 14th, and we're going to be talking about success and balance. So that's the upcoming conversation. So I am going to welcome Kelz in a moment. And Kelz, like I had mentioned, our topic is the anxious entrepreneur. And Kelz is a 3-time tech entrepreneur. She's a regional consultant for various startups within the Caribbean region. And she calls herself a tech humanist. And I am interested in sharing her story with you. So Kelz, let me bring you in. Let's see. I know I pressed the button. Hold on. Kelz, you have to send me the join request. Is it not working? I saw something pop up on my phone. I don't know what that was. In the meantime, how is everybody doing? Is this thing working? Y'all talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Do I need a software update? What's happening? Y'all can hear me okay? I get in a heart. There was a heart. Cool. Is everybody hearing me okay? Do I need to rejoin? What's going on? Hang on. Let's see. Hang on. Okay, so you guys can hear me okay. I know. Hold on, you need to send me the request. Send me the request before I start singing. I sing when I'm nervous and stressed. See, I'm starting to sweat. Differently still the room is hot, but yeah, I sing when I'm nervous and stressed out. And y'all don't really want me to start singing. Don't sing. Wow, thanks. Okay, we are holding. I don't see one on my side. I think there was some kind of software update, so there may need to be an update. In the meantime, I'ma talk. I'ma try and talk. See, after all of this prep, so I'll tell you guys, every now and again I share a few, I don't know what's happening with the bird outside. I share a few behind the scenes looks at what I do as prep leading up to these conversations. This is my prep for tonight's conversation because I don't like flying blind because of my anxiety, and I get really nervous, and I personally want questions like ahead of lives or interviews. Don't know what's happened with the bird, because I feel anxious. So I do this for my guests. I send out questions. It helps me to formulate my thoughts for the conversations. And I make a few notes and do a little bit of research. But this still makes me really, really nervous being on camera. I think that was one of the things that came up in our conversation with Kadia last week. I have the request. And Kadia and I spoke about the fact that to get over our anxiety, we actually just went on camera. All right, so let's...
Let us see. I think we're connecting.
There we go.
Hey.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. Technical difficulties. I had to update.
I realize it's all good. It's funny because last week we had technical issues with another like digital savvy individual, so it was funny. How is echo? Is there an echo for anybody? Or are we good? I'm getting feedback. I want to know if everybody else is okay. Yeah. But it may just be me. Okay, so tech humanist. Break that down for me.
Honestly, I just coined myself that because I guess, being in the tech space for so long, eventually I had this kind of, connection between tech and psychology and wanting to do something a bit bigger than just, creating products. I wanted to do something that made a difference. And so I felt like, from now on, the projects that I want to work on would be something for humanity, would be things for social good. And to really make a difference. And even in terms of how we use technology within the applications that we're building, we try to be a little conscious in terms of, not getting people addicted to applications. We look at how we use notifications and make sure that is, for benefiting the person and not for harm. So
I like that. I actually watched something about that the other day. So a quick thing, a couple people saying that there is feedback. Do we have headphones?
No. I think it's probably on my side. Is that better if I hold this silent?
Let's see. Maybe.
Yeah, just got put
We'll work with it.
All right.
We'll work with it. Okay, so your background is in psychology.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we clicked as well, was mutual kind of background in psychology, but then going kind of in a different direction. So how did that happen? Like a little bit more about your journey in terms of background in psychology into tech, and now you're kind of bridging that gap with your app in development, which is Recess.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah. So I did my master's in psychology, and this would have been like 2011 or so. At first, I did my first degree in management, and then I wanted to do my master's in psychology because at the time, I was super interested in like deep diving into psychology of entrepreneurship. So my plan was do my master's, and then I'm going to do my PhD and research the psychology of entrepreneurship. At that time, I was super interested in terms of like figuring out what makes an entrepreneur successful. Is this is this something that is based on personality? Is it based on like socio-demographic factors and so forth? And I was super interested in that space. And so I did my master's in psychology, not necessarily to practice at the time, but it was a stepping stone to do my PhD. That never happened. But I changed my direction. And after I did my master's in psych, I remember coming back to Trinidad. I had launched like a tech startup when I was in UE the first time, which was like a e-commerce something. And when I came back in, I went
wait, hold on. You're not just going to glaze over that, okay? You're not going to glaze over your tech startup while you were at university. So let's honor it.
All right. So when I was in UE, I had like it wasn't a huge startup, but essentially we had like a platform called shopawaytt.com. And at that time, I'm, not young. So at that time, credit cards wasn't very accessible, and like, so credit cards wasn't accessible, and there wasn't this huge movement in terms of like a bunch of skyboxes and stuff. So at that time, we decided to put up a platform that would allow specifically students to go on. They send us their links, and then we kind of process it, and then we go and deliver it to, their apartments and their houses and that kind of thing. And that did pretty well, because it was, before a lot of people were buying on like an eBay. It wasn't like super Amazon at that time. Yeah. And so, we ran that for...
You were ahead of the time.
Yeah. I should have held on to that one for sure.
So that's number one.
Number one.
What was number two?
Number two was Scared. But I had like other things in between that, like talking about our transition between like psychology and like the startup space and the tech space. I remember after I did my master's, I came back to Trinidad and I went to like a startup weekend, and I had this great idea at the time to do something like called We Counsel, because at that time I found that, stigma to go see therapist was super high in the Caribbean, and so I just wanted to do like a telehealth platform. Yeah, exactly. Just a telehealth platform for people to see therapists online and kind of reduce the barriers for therapy, you know. And I remember going to pitch it at Startup Weekend, and I was super excited about it. And I remember going to pitch it, and I was like, I have this idea, la 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 la. And then I got like one sticker. So nobody was interested in my great idea.
Ahead of the time, again.
I realize a pattern here, right?
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. And then after that, I guess like I took that as well. I found like maybe the market wasn't ready for it, and then I I just kind of took it as, okay, this is not going to work, and I ended up like joining this next team. And did some kind of transportation startup, and then I did. Then after that came Scared. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell folks a little bit about Scared.
So Scared really started off at a time where a lot of small businesses were not very tech enabled. You had to call to make appointments. It was really simple at that time. Like they didn't have a bunch of they didn't have Calendly, they didn't have a bunch of things that they are right now. And at that time, we just went around to different small businesses and we created an application that would allow persons to book appointments with their favorite service providers, essentially. So it was more like a marketplace. You go on, you search for, service businesses in the area, you see available times and you book appointments, and that eventually just continued to develop over the time, because that's my main startup, right? I'm working on that for like 5 years. And that has had ups, downs, and many iterations. But that eventually came to a point of where it is now, which is more like a web platform that allows any service provider to come on and get a one-page website with a integrated appointment solution, integrated payments platform, and everything.
And I tested this out, and it takes you less than 30 minutes to set this thing up, y'all. So scaredonline.com.
Yeah. Right? Yes, exactly.
So just plug in it.
Yes, exactly. There's a pretty good tool, I think, for persons who are low tech, who wants to get online, wants to get their business online, and don't want to go through the hassle of either paying, a WordPress developer to get that done, or they don't want to deal with a bunch of different plugins even in existing platforms. We kind of create a standard solution that will allow you to do everything to manage your service business online.
So now the third, the one that's in development, which is really the kind of culmination of your experience and your background in psychology, Recess. Give us a little bit of a breakdown with Recess.
Recess, basically is basically a neurotech app to help persons to get into flow state. It really started is to help people get into flow states to be able to perform more optimally, to be more productive, and to improve mental fitness. It really just started off as a deep dive for me, like a personal passion project based on my personal experience as an entrepreneur. And then I guess from there, we started just, research more and got into the right solution. And eventually we kind of digitized a piece of therapeutic that psychologists use currently. And we wanted to digitize it so that persons could have access to it at home without needing to go to a therapist, because we felt like, everybody should have this sort of, we wanted to, our thing, the team, myself, Lisanne, and Matt, our thing was scalability of some of these mental health tools. Like there is a shortage of psychologists globally. There are barriers to psychologists and to therapists. And we really wanted to kind of, I guess, democratize that a bit and just make it a bit easier for people to at least get some sort of relief and some sort of help, even if it's just to perform better. Because, the thing about mental health as well is that we think about mental health, we think about mental illness, but we don't really think about optimizing for the positive parts of ourselves as well. That's just as much as mental health, so we really wanted to do something on that side that would help people to optimize the positive parts of themselves, to improve how they focus, to improve how they work. Yeah.
The timing of this conversation is actually perfect, because that was something that I spoke about with Kadia just last week, and the limitations around accessibility and cost and the stigma. So Recess helps to bridge that gap, and you're doing beta testing.
Yeah. So
if anybody wants to, they can beta test.
Yeah, exactly. So right now we have a first version of the application that we're about to launch. And this basically, just a little background into what Recess is. It's basically a VR space. So, we make is on your phone, you go into, immerse yourself into a VR space. And there would be some bilateral stimulation, which is a tool at which the application is built on. So currently, within the beta, we have 4 sessions that a person could do. And so we want people to use it, give feedback for just a month, and then you would get a few months free. So go on with recess.com and sign up and try it out, and it will be helpful. And you could also be part of the community and be super early in trying it out.
I think it would be really cool. I signed up already, so
good.
I'm just saying. Okay, so let's get a little bit into your journey, which is what inspired the title of this conversation, the topic of this conversation, which is an anxious entrepreneur. So I am curious, apart from the obvious, what characterizes the anxious entrepreneur, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is all my opinion, but with the title of anxious entrepreneur is based on my personal experience as well. And I think that we think anxious entrepreneur, we think automatically, okay, you feel anxiety when you have things to do, but some of the things that you would see in an anxious entrepreneur might be procrastination, perfectionism, all these things, that imposter syndrome, all these things. Exactly.
Let the church say amen.
Exactly. Just do a little, Yeah, all these things that we all face, that entrepreneurs and high performers in particular face, that we really don't talk about, and we normalize it in a way. But really and truly, the root of it is almost based on trauma. I don't want to say trauma. Trauma sounds very heavy. But, we call it emotional memories, right? So we have a lot of emotional memories throughout our life, throughout our childhood, and it actually is stored in our body as trauma, as anxiety, and this is really what is causing us to want to be perfect. Like, why should you be a perfectionist? Like, why? Like, perfection doesn't exist, right? So when you look at the I guess the underbelly of some of these things that we face as entrepreneurs, it's actually based on emotional memories or trauma that's stored within our body. And the Recess application is just utilizing a tool that is more trauma informed to help us to unlock some of that anxiety and some of that stuff that is within our nervous system. Hence, it's a neurotech application, because it's more about nervous system regulation. Yeah.
So you touched on a buzzword, which I think has gained a lot of traction and popularity since last year, with everybody kind of coming online and more people going on camera and being in the space, all up in the space, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so there, even in a conversation with Diane, initially, she has a little bit of a iffy thing around syndrome, because she speaks to it being more of an experience versus a syndrome, because it's not a disorder.
Yeah.
But I'm curious because I was doing a little bit of research as well, and I was wondering, is it that imposter syndrome is naturally tied to somebody who has more anxiety? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, this is not a scientific opinion, so you're gonna have to take this with a grain of salt for sure. But my opinion is that I don't want to also negate the correlations that we see. Like, for example, women, people of color, like there's a particular type of person that tend to experience imposter syndrome more than other persons, right? And this is also kind of tied to trauma in a way, because we would see that women are brought up a certain way. They tend to feel, they tend to experience imposter syndrome. Same thing with certain demographics of persons, right? So more than anxiety, I think that imposter syndrome is really sort of like a trauma related feeling. It's still the same emotional memories that we spoke about. And really and truly, the persons that tend to experience imposter syndrome are typically women, like persons of color, if you're in the US and so forth, tend to experience imposter syndrome a bit more.
I actually linked an article in my link tree. I think it's the second link. And it was interesting. It was all about imposter syndrome. And they spoke about women. They spoke about firstborns. They spoke about millennials typically being prone to imposter syndrome because millennials and zillennials are within this space, which is very, comparison game oriented.
Yeah.
So I see the link, but I'm curious in terms of, let me fling in this question: what have you done to help yourself overcome your imposter syndrome? Or is it that you're still struggling with it too?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's something that, well, at least it's not something for me that I feel like, I have totally gotten a handle of at all, like at all. But the main thing about it is that it's not debilitating. It's not going to stop me from doing anything. So, I think that's the main thing. I just try to be action oriented and just sort of move through, my feelings. But but doesn't mean that I don't feel it. I feel imposter syndrome. I feel it all the time.
These kinds of conversations, I know that Matt, who is your head of community and engagement for Recess, the two of you are working on a podcast soon to be launched, and we'll kind of delve into more of these topics as well. Matt is actually going to be my guest too on July 28th. So I'm looking forward to digging even further into Recess. And by the way, Kadia, who joined the conversation or is watching, this is Kelly, who I was telling you about. You guys need to link. You need to have a conversation.
Hi, Kadia.
Y'all need to link. So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
When did your bubble burst? When did your bubble burst around entrepreneurship and the harsh realities about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, from being an idealistic 20-something-year-old thinking that everything is going to be, it probably burst. Yeah, it burst a while back when, you start a business, you put all your eggs in one basket, you go all in, and you have, we are optimistic, right? And we have these sorts of, I guess, hockey stick ideology, like these projections that you expect things to work out a particular way. And then when things are not working out, when for me, when things were not working out that way, and then it was past the point of not working. So it's like, it's not working out in 3 months. That's cool. It's not working out in a year. That's cool. It's not working out in 2 years. Now we have a problem,
So you waited the 2 years.
Exactly,
I waited 4.
Exactly.
It's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Yeah. And the thing about it too is like, I found that in terms of like my experience as well is that we don't speak about it enough. And I remember in probably like, was this 2018, a friend of mine, we started like the support group for entrepreneurs. So this is kind of, I've always been interested in this space. So we started the support group for entrepreneurs called DVA Talks, and it was supposed to be like a safe space for, young entrepreneurs and professionals to kind of come and talk about their experiences, openly. Because we found that there are a lot of like showboating as well in terms of, like Instagram, there's a lot of kind of showboating and Instagramming and, I don't know, you know.
Toxic productivity.
Exactly. And so I feel like a more holistic conversation needs to also be had around, entrepreneurship and exploring like the underbelly of it and exploring, the reality of the situation too, and just us being able to have open conversations about it. I think could be super helpful as well to just create that safe space.
Ahead of your journey into entrepreneurship, though, I don't know, you decided to specialize in this field from pretty early on. How come?
Well, that's because my parents were entrepreneurs. So I agree. Yeah. So essentially, it was always like a thing for me. I grew up in a house where my parents are entrepreneurs. I saw my parents like grow a company from like, it's a manufacturing company. So my parents grew this company from like the basement of my grandmother's house to like, a well-known, a fairly well-known brand in Trinidad. So I guess for me, seeing that, I guess I was always super intrigued about the idea of entrepreneurship, and hence I even wanted to do that PhD in terms of studying the psychology of entrepreneurship. Because for me, I wanted to figure out are there traits, are there success traits? Is there a type of person who tends to want to be an entrepreneur and all these things? So I guess
how crazy are they?
Yeah, exactly.
There's something there.
I should have.
There's something there. There's some kind of valid hypothesis in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Probably around like risk taking and yeah.
Yeah, Matt speaks to me good on this issue too. Like Matt, we had conversations about this. Yeah.
Noted. Like fighting against the status quo and the rebels in the companies.
Exactly. And this entrepreneurial DNA, it could be, yeah.
Okay, I'm getting a tons of feedback. I don't know if anybody else is hearing it.
It's me. I think it's me because it's how when I don't hold the phone.
However you were holding it before was good.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, how do you stay motivated?
I don't know if I do, but I'm joking.
No, I like the honesty. I like the honesty. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, every day is not a 10 out of 10. Every day is not also a 5 out of 10, but
it can be a 5 out of 5.
It could be a 5 out of 5, or it could be a 2 out of 10. It could be something.
Depends on how you look at it.
Exactly, right? But I just try to focus on small action, small winnable things. I try to break down tasks a bit. Sometimes I need to get better at that, but I tend to break down tasks. I try to just take every day as its own day, and now when COVID and everything, I've just been also just being a bit more, I guess, gentle with myself as well, and just sort of, if I don't feel to do anything today, I just ain't gonna do anything today. Like, yeah. And that's what keeps me motivated, as I also not putting pressure on myself, just being more holistic. Yeah.
You shared in the lead-up questions that you struggle with anxiety.
Yeah.
How do you manage your anxiety?
I don't know. I found that before I had a better gauge of my anxiety. So I think before I would manage my anxiety by like doing meditation. Sometimes I'd listen to like some bilateral music, which is what Recess is based on, something like that. But I found that within the last few months in COVID, I've been struggling with my anxiety, and now I try to, honestly, if something happens, I might try to move. I found that might be the most helpful thing, like go for
move your body.
Yeah, move your body, right? Like that might be the best thing. Some breath work may help, But this is what recess is for. I don't mean to plug recess, but honestly, it's really
No, we mean to plug recess. Like y'all need to. Let me just state. If you're just joining, head to withrecess.com and sign up to be a beta tester for this app because it's clearly going to be really good.
Yeah.
So movement has helped. Breath work. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and then again, some bilateral sounds. So like, again, that's kind of what recess is built on. So, some sort of bilateral sound, some sort of tap-in situation might help as well. I found that to be helpful.
Explain that to like the lay person, because there's like what that mean.
So basically, right. So basically, like the science behind the recess application is based on a therapy called EMDR, right? And basically, what it says is you basically look left to right, which is the bilateral stimulation. So you stimulate the both sides of your brain bilaterally, left, right. So it could be audio, it could be tactile, or it could be visual, right? And that doing that would help, unlock some anxiety within our bodies. And so sometimes just listening to bilateral audio tape could really help to kind of unlock some anxiety. And that's just doing that alone. But EMDR in of itself, that type of therapy is more like a guided bilateral situation that often like psychologists are certified in. Yeah.
Okay. What advice would you give to someone else who has similar challenges or does consider themselves to an anxious entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think if you are an anxious entrepreneur, this is gonna sound, be easy on yourself, honestly. I just think that now we after the pandemic and after these last 2 years, I think we just need to also we need to reach the point where we are now letting go of the toxic positivity, the toxic hustle culture. We need to kind of release that. And I would say release some of that, because some of it is actually tied to trauma. Like when you actually do that kind of shadow, when you think about it, like why am I burning out? Why am I pushing so hard? Why am I doing these things? So I would say sit with yourself. But also when you sit with yourself, just be easy on yourself, just be easy on yourself. You do what you could do. And yeah, that's the advice I'd give.
It sounds so easy though.
Yeah,
because even like I'm hearing you and I was like, I struggled with this really, really hard up until last year.
Yeah.
When I crashed and burned. Like the last time I crashed and burned was towards the end of last year, and that was struggling with the toxic productivity, falling into the comparison trap. Hence why I muted a bunch of people. I love y'all, but I cannot manage to watch you guys a lot of the time. So I muted a lot of people on social media, just for my own peace of mind. And that sense of feeling like you have to work till you burn out is toxic. And if you're not grinding, then you're not doing nothing. Yeah. A friend of mine shared a post today that spoke to the fact that don't wait until you're tired to take a break, and I thought that was very timely. Can you expand on the toxic productivity? We're getting questions. Yeah, bring in the question. That's for you.
Oh, this for me. Oh, toxic positivity. Positivity, right? I'm not saying the question. That's right. Yeah, well,
toxic productivity.
Yeah, well, toxic productivity is just the idea that we need to be productive. We need to, accomplish these goals. I have my task list. Like we need to do these things, but really it's sort of toxic because it's actually not good for us. So it's not good for our body. It's not good for our nervous system. And so we think that we need to work hard. We need to work 18-hour days, 20, we need to work very hard to achieve what we want to achieve. But at the same time, what are we really achieving? Like, what are our more holistic goals? How are we really fulfilled? So really and truly, toxicity in it is kind of fueling more of like I don't want to be all social or whatever, but, very capitalist system as well. So, so yeah, I don't have to answer that question, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, social media contributes to that heavily. And one thing I'll say is if you are falling into the trap of the toxic productivity, it's probably because you're serving or being served a lot of content that is encouraging that type of behavior. So if you're not happy with, for example, your social media feed, it means that you need to probably clean it up. Like get rid of some people, unfollow some hashtags, mute some folks.
Yeah.
Because if they're fostering that kind of cycle of burnout and you feel incompetent or you're not struggling or you're not moving fast enough, then chances are this is the environment, the virtual environment that you've curated for yourself, and it means that you need to fix it. So,
Yeah,
but this entire thing surrounding entrepreneurship, how do you balance that? I'm liking these questions.
I'm not seeing the
Who is Alora the Foodie? So Alora the Foodie says, thanks for that, but isn't that the entire thing surrounding entrepreneurship? How do you balance that? Because productivity is linked directly to entrepreneurship. So I guess, how do you balance that?
That's a really good question, but it's so funny because we have this kind of Western idea of entrepreneurship as well, right? Like, for example, it's very Western, very, very US, North American oriented almost. Because, you know, we realize like in Europe and so forth, they tend to have a bit more balance in how they even deal with business and how they deal with entrepreneurship. So, I mean, yes, we're trying to hit our goals. We're trying to be successful, but also success is not only one-dimensional. We are also not one-dimensional people. We also have different parts of ourselves. So yeah, we want to be successful, but we need to be, you know, this kind of wheel, you know, you go to therapy. We have different parts of ourselves that we also need to be successful in. So that we are better prepared to actually perform better, right? Because if you are burnt out, you're actually not actually performing at your best. You're actually not productive. You're actually not hitting the goals. What you are is stressed out and burnt out, you know? And we spoke about this in an episode of the podcast about like Elon Musk made a quote. Like, I can't remember I wish I had it. Elon Musk said something about if you need, it was something like, Elon Musk said something like, if you need praise or something like that, it means that you're not an entrepreneur or something like that, right? And I posted this and I was like, okay, true, because I was in this, you know, I was high. I was like, yeah. And this guy that I knew, he responded and he's like, yeah, this is shit though. Like, he's like, this is incorrect. This is not true, because we're talking about white male privileged person. So, you know, so really and truly, sometimes no matter how hard we work, really and truly, are we really, is it really going to change our success? Is it really going to make a difference to what we're doing? Because you don't want to sit still. It's more about us intrinsically, as opposed to really and truly if we look to see if it's actually contributing to the goals that we set out to do.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, wait, hold on. If you need words of encouragement, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Oh, that was a quote.
Yeah, that's Elon Musk quote. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, people kind of get more time for that.
I think in terms of that sense of validation, though, I feel like intrinsically, I think many of us do want some sort of validation. So, and then you fall into that trap of, okay, well, if I'm not moving fast enough and if I'm not able to meet these goals, then it just, this whole cycle of then the imposter syndrome kicks back up again anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes. So, Alora the Foodie, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, says thanks for sharing.
Okay.
And she was bigging you up too before.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kelz, for joining me.
All right.
And I want to encourage anybody who's interested in learning more about Recess to head to withrecess.com. You can sign up to be a beta tester. And we will be back for another CEO chat on July 14th with Dr. Karen Carpenter, and we're going to be talking about success and balance. I think all of these conversations are just like lining up right behind the other. And please, guys, go and check out the previous episodes. They were great. Thank you, Paloma. Paloma says, great discussion. And
Right.
thank you, Kelz, for joining me.
Thanks, Anika. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.